therefore there was a lot of noise condemning the initial military coup. Not particularly strong statements.
Many are still not calling it a coup, right?
No, and actually, in the US, I think it's only John McCain who's actually referred to it as a military coup, but it is pure and simple a military coup. I mean, one of the issues that we've been looking at recently is whether the current president of Egypt, deposed or not, still has the authority to refer his country to the International Criminal Court, and whether Morsi can actually do that. I mean, when we're looking at political instability, justice and accountability, I mean, Egypt is the perfect case study for that. I mean, what we have seen is literally hundreds and hundreds of crimes, thousands of crimes being committed with little or no response. And now seeing the US wishing to sort of re-engage on aid to Egypt is, of course, deeply worrying.
Can I just comment on the Egypt bit? I think that there is a hypocrisy that's taking place. I cannot remember another example of where a constitutionally elected government, a president, within 1 year went to prison because of failings which really a lot of it is beyond his control. You had a situation where he's challenged to actually create a new state, new government in a country that has been under despotic, tyrannical rule for over 40 years. And against some of the poor judgment of journalists here in the UK, he did not go in and basically deforest all the political players within Egypt. He tried to work with many of the political institutions, the political class, and now what you see is the secularists and the so-called liberalists, who are not like the secularists and liberals in the West, who are actually showing their true colours, showing their ruthlessness in Egypt. But that, of course, has wider implications for Palestine.
Well, this is what I was going to bring in, Nasim. Israeli officials have said they want to help the Egyptian state fight terrorists and jihadists in Sinai. Will this military cooperation improve regional security, or will it just aggravate the tensions that are already there?
Well, whenever Israel gets involved, I think it only aggravates the situation. I think it's best for Israel to stay away from any kind of problems within the Middle East. Israel is a problem in itself. So adding another dimension to Egyptian problem through Israel or the Golan Heights because of Israel is not something which we should welcome. But what it's doing is, though, it's constraining Gaza even more. What you have in situation is a compounded problem in Gaza. You have, on the one hand, 80% of the Palestinians in Gaza who are aid dependent, and UNRWA itself has not even met 20% of its budget. So it's around 60-75% of budget. UNRWA is in deficit of about 60-75%. So given that's a situation, also with Hamas, it requires 900 million. And it's only managed to accumulate 200 million. And with the tunnels being closed, which is a lifeline for the Gazans, you have now another shortfall of 400 million. So we had a very grim situation in Gaza. It's now even grimmer, and it's more hopeless for the Palestinians within Gaza. So Israel saying we will actually intervene and try and weed out terrorism within the West Bank, within Gaza and Egypt, it doesn't really help the situation. The only real player in Gaza, the only player who's keeping a lid and repressing any kind of extremism is Hamas within Gaza. If Hamas was not there, with the level of hopelessness in Gaza at the moment, you would have more attacks against Israel. And we don't want, no one wants another front, another conflict within Gaza and Israel. So Hamas is playing a very sensible role, but it's getting no support from the West, no support from the Middle Eastern governments, and it's actually worrying because it's not being able to pay the salaries of 55,000 of its civil servants. So the situation is very, very grim and very, very volatile at the moment.
There's so much I'd like to discuss with you both on these topics, but let's have a look at this short clip and then we'll come back and try and explore some of this a little bit more. Early in the programme, you saw the news where former Bangladeshi Prime Minister Khaleda Zia arrested on Wednesday on corruption charges. She's accused alongside other opposition figures of embezzling nearly £400,000. With more on this, here's this short report.
Earlier this week, Bangladeshi opposition leader Khalida Zia was forced to stand trial over charges of embezzlement. In a case that could see the chair of the leading opposition party in Bangladesh jailed for life, the two-time Prime Minister only has a few weeks before trial. This comes as Bangladesh rounds up a tumultuous year in which arch-rival Sheikh Hasina was re-elected. Zia's centre-right Bangladesh Nationalist Party has vowed to topple Sheikh Hasina's Awami League government after boycotting the January 5th election, which it denounced as a farce. Relations between the two parties have never been sweet, but over the last few years there has been a hawking back to the bitterness of Bangladesh's early days. The governing Awami League set up an international crimes tribunal to try perpetrators of war crimes during the independence struggle in 1971. The first indictments were issued in 2010, and worries were raised on the legitimacy of the setup and the intentions behind the prosecutions. Senior opposition figures from the Bangladesh Nationalist Party and their allies, including Jamaat Islamiyah, were tried. Abdul Qadir Mullah of Jamaat-e-Islami was executed. The International Crimes Tribunal set the grounds for one of the bloodiest elections in Bangladesh's short history, with protests worldwide. As sport and industry grips the nation on one side, animosity between leading figures in the country and the ideological battles the country is facing haven't taken a back seat. Last week, BNP deputy leader Fakhrul Islam Alamgir and 4 other senior party figures were sent to jail for violence in the run-up to the January contest. And Zia's arrest is regarding 21.5 million taka stolen from funds from an orphanage dating back to her previous tenure as Prime Minister. Corruption and scandal taking centre stage in the battle for authority. With executions still impending and the International Crimes Tribunal still in the mix, corrupt dealings in Bangladesh don't seem to be going away. Ryan Clementson, The Report.
So we just saw a few details on what happened earlier this week. Now, Toby, I know you follow Bangladesh very closely. Now, what's happening there? Now, we've seen another opposition figure, a leading opposition figure, former Prime Minister Khalida Zia, being taken in on embezzlement charges.
Well, we've seen this coming for some time, and it's been adjourned over the last few months, and so it's no real surprise that it has come about now and the process has started. Her legal team requested an additional adjournment, which was rejected. Unfortunately, that resulted in a lot of shouting in the courtroom. But the fact was the proceedings have now started. And it's not a surprise because this is really what the Awami League does, targeting members of the opposition. Now, it's not for me to say whether these particular charges are legitimate or not, but showing the general trend of the Awami League, one has reason to be suspicious.
Before we go into our trending tweets, if you could just give me a quick update on the cases of Ghulam Azam and the other individuals that you are currently representing.
Certainly. Ghulam Azam's case is pending appeal. The appeal hasn't started yet. What we're seeing at the moment is the Saidi appeal was ongoing. Rather surprisingly, the Supreme Court, the Appellate Division of the Supreme Court, closed the defence case rather abruptly and have now adjourned matters until the 1st of April. And there are a number of other cases as well pending. What I can say is that, very, very quickly, is that this is something that the international community is paying very close attention to. I was recently in New York and Washington where I held high-level discussions on the trials itself, and there was a closed-door meeting at the United Nations specifically in regards to the human rights situation in Bangladesh.
We'll be following the story on the report, so we'll be getting updates from you, hopefully, Toby. Now let's quickly get an update from Twitter. Lots of different stories have been trending throughout the week, so let's have a look at some of the things you've all been tweeting about.
Trending on Twitter this week. As the conflict in Syria enters its 4th year, new dimensions have emerged, with @Ikadegel adding context with Netanyahu's vow saying, "We strike those who strike us." Violence in Egypt hasn't died down and tweeters have been consistently reporting incidents. @S El Wardani tweeted 7 people have been killed in a shootout. Bangladesh came into the spotlight after opposition leader Khalida Zia was formally charged on 2 counts of corruption. @Sabir59 tweeted that the trial is to begin next month, with @Adam Plow adding she's been accused of embezzlement of $600,000.
Okay, very briefly from the both of you now, we do see lots of different topics, Syria, Egypt, Bangladesh, it's all trending on social media. I know we heard about Turkey as well. If I could just get a very brief comment on you. Do you think social media activism regarding these topics has an impact? Very briefly, Nasim.
Well, the whole Arab Spring shows that it has an impact. I mean, a lot of Turkey just recently blocked its Twitter and Facebook, I think, as well. So it shows that there is a social impact from social media, which politicians actually fear. So this is a platform which politicians around the world, here in the UK as well, they're actually very afraid of. Something for politicians to be afraid of, Toby?
Certainly, it makes lobbyists obsolete. I mean, it is the way to go.
Well, thank you both very much for joining us. Unfortunately, everyone, that is all we've got time for this evening. I want to thank both of my guests, Nasim, Ahmed and Toby Cadman, for joining us. And, of course, you at home for watching. Remember to keep up with the Twitter conversation using #TheReport. We're following stories throughout the week, so do keep tweeting. If you prefer, you can email us your thoughts on the report at islamchannel.tv, and to watch previous programmes, do go onto our YouTube channel at /IslamChannel.tv. But for now, we'll leave you some scenes from Germany, where polar bear twins born at Munich's Hellerbrunn Zoo at the end of last year made their first public outing on Wednesday. Do tune in on Tuesday night for a midweek edition of The Report. But until then, from all of us here, Assalamu alaikum.